Martin Brown stands near the edge of the crowd, dressed in a clean but modest dark suit, Northwest pocket square, no designer watch. He looks like a man who wandered into a room built for someone else. His ex-wife, Cassidy Beck, stands beside his younger brother, Marvin Brown, polished, tailored, commanding. She wears a fitted blue satin dress, diamond earrings catching the chandelier light. She is laughing at something Marvin whispered. She belongs here now, or so she believes. Cassidy sees him first.
Martin, who let you in?
I was invited, Cassidy.
By who?
The parking staff? Martin, didn't expect to see you dressed up. What is this, Rye, your interview suit?
You are a weak man. You are miserable, very disgusting. You drove the same car for 8 years while Marvin, your younger brother, built something real. You know what your problem is, Martin? You've had every opportunity. Your father's name, this family, and you chose nothing.
How's that working out for you? Watch your mouth. You don't belong here, brother. This is my company. I own this room. None of it belongs to you. It never will.
And you will always be nothing.
That was the night my ex-wife stood in a building I was about to own and told the room I was nothing. She wasn't lying about who I used to be. She just didn't know who I had become. And I had worked very carefully to make sure nobody did, not you. What you're about to hear isn't a revenge story. It's something harder than that. It's a story of a man who had to lose everything the wrong people gave him before he could build something nobody could take. Before we start, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from. It really helps the channel grow. And I always love seeing where you all are tuning in from. Alright, let's get into the story. The night of the gala, when they laughed at me in that ballroom, none of them knew what I was carrying. I had spent 4 years building toward that single night, and by the time I walked through those doors, there was no version of it that would end quietly. The room was full of light and champagne, and people who had never once looked at me the way they looked at my brother. Marvin was already holding court near the center of the floor, laughing at something, his hand resting on the small of Cassidy's back like she'd always belonged there. My ex-wife, his girlfriend now, the mother of his child. Nobody in that ballroom knew that in a few hours, all 3 of those facts would matter a lot less than what I knew about him. They saw me come in and Marvin's face did the thing it always did, a flicker of amusement, like my presence was a joke he didn't have to explain. Cassidy looked at me the way you look at a bill you forgot you owed. Martin, Marvin said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. Didn't think you'd show. Thought this might be a little rich for your blood. A few people laughed. Not unkindly, just easily, the way people laugh at things they've been told are funny. I wanted to see you have your moment, I said. I'm having a few of them lately. He glanced at Cassidy, and something passed between them. Something practiced, like they'd rehearsed being happy in front of me. You remember Cassidy? I remember her. Cassidy's chin lifted slightly. You look well, Martin. You look like you finally got what you wanted. Marvin laughed, delighted. See, this is what I always loved about my brother. Not bitter. Realistic. He knows his lane. He turned to the small crowd that had gathered. My brother builds software. Little logistics thing. Very quiet. Very modest. He said modest the way other people say small. I let him have it. I let all of them have it. The laughter, the pity, the little performance of a man who thought he already knew how the story ended. I'm proud of you, actually, I said, and I meant it in a way none of them understood. Enjoy tonight. It might be the last one like this. Marvin frowned, amused, uncertain. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing yet. I looked at Cassidy, just for a second, long enough to let her see that I wasn't hollow, that 4 years hadn't left a hole in me shaped like her. Then I said the only thing I'd come downstairs to say. Not yet, and I turned and walked toward the far corridor, leaving them confused in the middle of their own party. Because I already knew what was happening 2 floors above their heads. My lawyer was already in the building, sitting with people who mattered more than any of the guests at that party. For 3 days, my team had been quietly talking to the people who actually controlled Marvin's company, not the ones who liked him, but the ones who were tired of covering for him. I had spent 4 years buying up pieces of the company Marvin thought was untouchably his, doing it so carefully that nobody noticed until it was already done. And more than that, I had proof. Proof that the thing propping up his empire wasn't genius or charm, but fraud, and that he had used my name to hide it. So that if it all came crashing down, I would be the one standing in the wreckage, not him. He didn't know any of that yet. He thought tonight was the night he became untouchable. He was about to walk upstairs and announce himself as permanent head of our father's company, in front of everyone who mattered, holding a microphone he thought no one could take from him. He didn't know I was already holding the door. My phone buzzed in my pocket. One line, "Everyone is here. Whenever you're ready." I typed back a single word. Now. I walked back through the same crowd that had just laughed at me, past people who didn't know yet that the story they thought they were watching had already ended, toward the private elevator at the far end of the hall. Nobody stopped me. I'd made sure of that 3 days earlier. When the doors opened on the top floor, the room was quiet in the particular way a room is quiet right before something breaks. The people who ran the company were already seated. Marvin wasn't there yet, still downstairs, still enjoying being looked at. I stood at the head of a table. It was the seat my father had never once offered me while he was alive. An older man at the table, one of my father's oldest friends, looked at me for a long moment. "Gerald's boy," he said. "The quiet one." "Yes, sir." "What do you intend to do?" "Take everything Marvin has been hiding and put it on this table. Remove him from any position of power in this family's company tonight. And make sure the people who work for it, the ones who had nothing to do with any of this, don't pay for what he's done." Nobody spoke. Marvin walked in a few minutes later, jacket straightened, ready to be applauded. He found me instead, standing where he expected to be standing. His smile dropped like a curtain. "What is this?" "Sit down, Marvin." He laughed, short and disbelieving, the same laugh from downstairs, except this time nobody around him was laughing with him. "You don't get to tell me to sit down in my own boardroom. It's not your boardroom anymore. It hasn't been for a while. You just didn't know it." His eyes moved around the table, reading faces, realizing for the first time that the room wasn't on his side. "This is a joke. Some kind of stunt, because Cassidy left you for me. This is pathetic, Martin, even for you." "This isn't about Cassidy." "Then what is it about?" "It's about you forging my signature. Hiding money that wasn't yours to hide. Using my name to build yourself an exit. So that if any of this ever came out, I'd be the one who went down for it instead of you." For the first time in his life, I watched my brother's face lose its certainty entirely. "You can't prove that," he said, quieter now. I nodded toward the documents already laid out on the table in front of every person in that room, the paper trail he thought no one would ever find, sitting there in black and white for everyone he'd ever performed for to see. The room went cold around him. "Do you want to keep talking?" I asked, "or do you want to hear what happens next?" He didn't answer. For the first time in 38 years, my brother had nothing to say. But to understand how we got to that room, how a brother who was never chosen for anything ended up holding his golden brother's entire life in his hands, you have to go back much further than that night. Let's go back 38 years, to a hallway outside our father's study, to the moment I first learned exactly where I stood. I was 12 years old the first time I understood my place in my father's mind. I was standing outside his study and I heard him on the phone. "Marvin has the instinct," he said. "Martin's too careful. Careful men don't build empires." I didn't move. I just stood there and let the words settle into me like sediment. My father wasn't cruel. He was just certain. And certainty, in a powerful man, is a kind of cruelty that never has to admit itself. Marvin got the lunches with executives, the photographs, the family name worn like a crown. I got books, and I got left alone. I didn't resent it, not really. I watched what that crown did to my brother's face. It made him hungry in a way that was never going to be satisfied. I was almost relieved not to carry that hunger. In high school, Marvin joined debate, ran for office, shook every hand in reach. I studied quietly and won a state coding competition. My father didn't come. When I told him about it, he said, "That's a hobby, Martin, not a direction." After college, my father offered me a seat at the family table. "I'm offering you a place at this table, Martin. Not because I have to, because you're my son." I appreciate that, Dad. I do. But I want to build something that belongs to me because I earned it, not because I was born into it. He was quiet a long moment. That sounds noble. It isn't. It's fear dressed up as principle. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just don't want to spend my life competing for something that should have been freely given. Something shifted in his face. Not respect, not quite. Something adjacent to it. He didn't say it out loud. "Marvin won't wait for you to come back," he said instead. "I know." So I left. I took a quiet job, lived a quiet life, and started building something small in my spare time, something nobody in my family knew existed. That wasn't an accident. For once, I wanted something that was only mine. I thought that would be the hardest part of my life, being the son nobody chose. I was wrong. The hardest part came later, and it didn't come from my father. It came from the person I trusted most. I met Cassidy Beck at a colleague's dinner party. She was sharp and funny, and asked me real questions instead of performing interest the way most people did. On our third date, she laughed and said, "You're the only man I've ever dated who doesn't need me to be impressed." Is that good or bad? I genuinely don't know yet. Ask me in a year. For 3 years, it was genuinely good. She called my quietness groundedness. I believed her. Then came a Brown family charity gala, the first she attended as my wife. Marvin walked in, tailored, magnetic, and the room turned toward him like it was turning toward an open window. I watched her watch him. It wasn't attraction, not yet. It was recognition. She saw someone who needed to be seen and was very good at it. I think that's the moment she began measuring the room and then measuring me against him. Small erosions started after that. Comments about my car. Questions about why I wasn't growing faster. "Marvin announced a new acquisition today," she said once, setting her bag down. Front page. I saw. Doesn't that ever make you want to push harder? Go bigger. I'm moving at the pace that's right for what I'm building. Right. Yeah. She picked up her phone. The conversation was over. My friend Ernest Webb noticed before I let myself admit it. Over lunch, she said, "I'm going to say something you don't want to hear. Then say it fast. Your wife looks at your brother the way people look at a life they wish they were living." I was quiet a long time. I know. And I'm hoping I'm wrong. I wasn't wrong. Her lifestyle changed. Her language changed. She stopped calling me grounded and started calling me comfortable with less than I should want. One night, unaware I'd ever hear it, she told her friend Tegan on the phone, "I love Martin. I do. But I look at Marvin and I think, that's what ambition looks like. And I'm tired of telling myself that quiet and steady is enough." "So what are you going to do?" Tegan asked. "I don't know yet, but I think I've known for a while that I'm in the wrong chapter." I found the recording by accident. I sat with it for 3 days before I decided anything. Those days weren't calm. I looked at the furniture we'd picked out together and asked myself if I'd ever been enough for what she actually wanted. The answer that kept coming back was maybe not. The harder answer was that she had the right to want what she wanted. She just didn't have the right to what came next. 6 months later, she asked for a divorce. She used phrases like grown in a different direction. I let her finish, then asked one question. Is it Marvin? She went still. The silence answered for her. It wasn't supposed to happen the way it did, she finally said. But it happened. Martin. One more question. Did you ever actually love me? Or did you love who you thought I might become? She opened her mouth, closed it. I loved who you were. I just needed someone who wanted the same things I do now. Marvin understands what it means to want a life people can see. A life people can see. I nodded slowly, picked up my jacket, walked to the door, and stopped. For what it's worth, I wasn't hiding from ambition, Cassidy. I was just building something you couldn't see yet. Then I left. Within 60 days, she and Marvin were photographed together at galas and resorts, called a power couple by every outlet that covered them. He gave an interview about finding the right partner for this chapter. I got one line, in a sidebar, Marvin Brown's older brother, a software entrepreneur. A footnote. Ernest called after that piece ran. You doing all right? I'm working. That's not what I asked. I'm doing what I've always done, Ernest. Building something quiet. And I'm going to keep doing it. But something in me had changed. The betrayal did something, not just the pain, but the specific humiliation of being compared and found lacking, publicly, by the two people I trusted most. I didn't become angry. I became decided. Anger burns everything, including the wrong things. Deciding is cold and directional. I decided I would build something they couldn't ignore, quietly, before either of them ever saw it coming. Around that same time, I stumbled onto something strange in some paperwork that crossed my desk, a shell company. Its address linked back to my brother's company. I filed it away, said nothing, but I started watching. Years later, one of my employees came to me with something worse than either of us expected. Signs that Marvin's company was propped up by lies, inflated deals, money that didn't exist. And buried inside it was the thing that changed everything. My name, my forged signature, on documents I'd never signed. My brother hadn't just built himself an empire on lies. He'd built himself an exit and quietly put my name on the door, so that if it all came crashing down, I would be the one who fell. I sat with that for a long time. Then I said, quietly, to the one person I trusted with it, he didn't just steal from a company. He built the door out, and he put my name on it. What do you want to do? I want to walk through that door first, and I want him standing on the other side when I do. Around the same time, an old, dying friend of my father's asked to see me. He told me something I never expected, that near the end of his life, my father had quietly changed his will, because he'd finally understood something about his sons he'd never had the courage to say out loud. Marvin had found out and buried it. The old man had kept a copy, sealed, for years, waiting for a moment he thought might never come. I held that letter for a long time before I opened it. I called Ernest, not for advice, just to hear a steady voice. If you were about to do something completely right, but it would destroy your family's reputation in public, would you still do it? Depends what happens to real people if you don't, he said, without hesitating. Hundreds of people who work for that company. If it collapses without someone stepping in, they lose everything. Then you already know the answer. You're just asking so you can hear yourself say it. Yeah, I said. Yeah, I think I am. I decided. Full exposure. But I would choose the moment. I would not move until I was standing in the room myself. He's announcing himself as permanent head of the company at the gala, I told my team. That's where I walk in. That decision is what carried me up 2 floors, past my own humiliation, into a room where the people who actually mattered were already waiting. And it's what put me across the table from my brother, watching him lose, for the first time in his life, the certainty that had always been handed to him for free. The vote happened fast. Security came in. My brother, the golden son, was walked out of his own boardroom past our father's portrait, and for once in his life, no one in that hallway was looking at him with admiration. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. I'd imagined this moment 100 ways over 4 years, and it didn't feel like winning. It felt like a very heavy door closing on a very long chapter. Below us, the band kept playing for an announcement that was never going to come. What came out afterward was worse than anyone expected. Years of hidden debt, lies stacked on lies, hundreds of ordinary employees' futures sitting inside the wreckage he'd built. I could have hidden from it, protected the family name, let it quietly disappear the way my father always would have. Instead, I told the truth publicly, all of it, and let the consequences land where they belonged. The company's value dropped. Headlines called it a scandal. But because I told the truth instead of managing it, the people who actually depended on that company, not my family, not the men in suits, but the ones who'd shown up to work every day with no idea what was happening above them, didn't lose everything. That mattered more to me than anything else that happened that year. 3 months later, Cassidy showed up at my office, visibly pregnant, without the polish she used to wear like armor. "I know I don't have a right to be here," she said. "You have the right. You just have to say something worth hearing." The baby was Marvin's. His lawyers had frozen everything and called her a liability he couldn't afford to be seen with. Her business, built entirely on his connections, had collapsed along with him. "I have nothing left," she said. I asked her the only question that actually mattered. Was any part of leaving about who I really was, or only about what I couldn't show her at the time? She was quiet a long time, and then she admitted it. She'd needed to feel visible, and standing next to me, she'd felt invisible, and she'd chosen the version of a life people could see over the truth of what we actually had. I told her I couldn't take her back, not out of cruelty, but because what she'd wanted was never something a person could give her. Then I told her the baby was my niece, that I'd already set up a trust for her education that no one could touch, and that this wasn't forgiveness. It was refusing to let a child pay for choices she never made. Cassidy cried, quietly, and left. I called Ernest that night. "My father would have," he started, and stopped. "My father would have been surprised," I said. Which is enough. Months later, outside a courthouse, Cassidy grabbed my arm, begging me to go easy on Marvin for the baby's sake. I gently removed her hand. "I won't lie to make this easier. That's not mercy. That's just letting the wrong things keep happening." Marvin saw me standing there as they led him away, no suit this time, no room to perform for, just a tired man. "You did all of this because she left you," he said. "I did this because you forged my name, hid what our father actually wanted, and nearly destroyed the lives of people who had nothing to do with either of us. You were wrong about both." He asked if this wasn't really just about being humiliated. I told him the truth. The betrayal was what brought me back into all of this. I wouldn't pretend otherwise. But revenge would have meant burning it all to the ground just to watch him lose everything with it. What I did instead was expose what he'd hidden and try to save what was still worth saving. That's the opposite of what you would have done in my place. For one moment, without an audience, he just looked tired. "The kid's going to grow up knowing what her father did," he said. "That depends on what her father does next." Weeks later, he asked me to visit him. There was no performance left in him at all. He asked about his daughter, and I told him what I'd already told Cassidy, that I'd be in her life, that she'd have what she needed, and that someday she'd hear the whole truth, complicated parts included. Then he asked, quietly, if our father had known what he was doing. "I think he suspected," I said. "It's part of why he changed things at the end. But he loved you too." Both were true at the same time. "He never told me that," Marvin said. "He never told either of us the things that mattered most." He asked, finally, if any of what I'd built had ever really been about proving something to him or to our father. I thought about it honestly before answering. In the beginning, both. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about proving anything. It became about not letting you take down something and someone that never did anything to deserve it. He nodded slowly. Okay. Later, someone asked me publicly how it felt to finally beat the brother who was always chosen over me. I thought about it honestly before I answered. I didn't beat him, I said. He made choices that hurt people, including me, and those choices caught up with him. If I'd spent 4 years trying to beat him, I think I would have become someone I didn't want to be. Instead, I spent 4 years building something real. The moment that actually felt like something good wasn't in that boardroom. It was 3 months later, when I found out that every person who worked there who had nothing to do with any of this, still had a future because of what we chose to do. I was never the brother who couldn't win. I was the brother who didn't want to play at all, until the people who could get hurt were people who had no one else standing up for them. My father spent 30 years building an empire and almost 30 years making sure I understood it was never meant to be mine. Then, right at the end, quietly, he changed his mind, because he finally understood which of his sons would use it to protect something bigger than himself. He never found the words to tell me that while he was alive. But the letter came anyway, sealed, from an old man who didn't want to die with the truth still hidden. I think, in the end, that was enough. For both of us, I think that was enough. If you enjoyed this and you leave without subscribing, you're exactly like the people who overlooked Martin for years. Don't be the person who ignores the value right in front of them. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't let this be another thing you take for granted.